Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us this morning for our Data Protection User Group. Today is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. I'm Eric Fiola. We want to start this morning with a few housekeeping items before we get started. Ryan will be referencing a variety of resources during today's session. You can find those resources by clicking on the Google Drive link that is in the chat window right now. Additionally, if you have any questions during today's webinar, you can use the Q&A feature located in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can also ask a question out loud using your microphone. Just click on the raise hand icon down in the reactions menu. And finally, we are recording today's session, so follow-up information will be emailed out to data protection officers after our meeting today. Now I'm going to turn things over to our MORIC data security leader, Ryan Mahoney, to kick things off this morning. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Eric and everyone else. I just need to get my video started here. There we are. So good morning. Thanks for the introduction, Eric. As Eric mentioned, the resources for the meeting are should have been sent out in the email link to the meeting, as well as available in the chat. We'll be referencing some things throughout, and you'll see that link appear a number of times in the chat, just so everyone's aware, or people who come in later, whatnot, who are able to see that. So what we're going to talk to you today, Eric already gave us our warm welcome and introductions. We're going to go through the data security threat landscape as we particularly do during the beginning of these meetings. We're going to look at some situations and some audits that are going on from the State Comptroller's Office, as well as some that may involve State Education Department. And then finally, we're going to look at some available resources that we've seen over the years, but we wanted to kind of put them back out there for you because they're going to be relevant to a number of the things we discussed, particularly in the audit section, and for some things that we've seen going on around the state. So we're going to start out with the data security threat landscape. And now when we're going through this, I want you to keep in mind, you'll have seen a lot of these things before because the threat landscape is kind of a very overarching thing. But as we're going through, kind of keep in mind, if you're seeing these things in the district, or if you have the awareness to know and how you will know what measures and steps you're taking that you're putting in place to mitigate these, what you're going to do if you see any of these things happen in your district, how are you going to respond? Do you have your plans in place? Are you having regular conversations about these things? Conversations with your technology office. Are we seeing phishing emails? Are there a lot of them or a few of them? Are people doing okay with them? Are people clicking? So having those discussions in your district as to, how do we know and what are we doing about it are going to be information that's kind of vital to your success in these areas. So that's kind of why we go through these. So you see, kind of what are the hot things that are out there right now, and where should we be focusing most of our attention. So as you can see on the list, phishing is number one. Typically, we talk about it a little later down the list. Now, these aren't necessarily in priority order, but I did want to move it on the list so we could highlight a little further, especially because of the last 2 months or so, we've been seeing a tremendous uptick in phishing attempts throughout the region, both through the kinds of phishing where they're impersonating someone in your school district, such as the superintendent, emailing staff, trying to get them to respond back to that email with some different information, or send gift cards, or send kind of personal information to contact outside of kind of school security measures, such as cell phone numbers and things like that, to reach out and get with those, as well as traditional kind of phishing emails that we talk about with malicious attachments or malicious links, especially ones that involve Google Drive sharing. So ensuring that your Google environments are set up the way that you expect that they are. So information is not being shared outside of personal accounts or with other school districts that you may not be aware that they're shared with, because we have seen some compromises in other school districts affecting Google Drive shares and shares with into our environments as well. So again, we focus on the phishing recognition training, and KnowBe4 can be a key tool for that, making sure you understand what your operating practices are for kind of the vital functions such as payroll adjustment, who's supposed to be sharing information, get stuff together for conferences, stuff like that. And then, of course, MFA, which kind of heard me talk about on a number of these sessions over and over again. And I really want to stress how important MFA is in a lot of these cases. And it's within the next several years, I would expect most of our primary vendors, your Googles, your Microsofts, or whomever, are going to make it required to even utilize their products because of what a vital security tool it is. So if you're not having those MFA conversations in your district yet, or you haven't gotten that ball rolling, be a great time to at least get those conversations started and figure out what we want to do with MFA, both on email for all staff and as well as our administrative accounts. Which kind of leads us into business email compromise, which is kind of the next step after a lot of these phishing things, is compromising passwords, usernames and passwords for email, and then utilizing those email accounts either to log into other software, to proceed with kind of deeper phishing attacks, as well as gain a foothold into other aspects of your network. So starting out with phishing, they're trying to get a hold of your email because your email is kind of your identity in a lot of our environments, and they want to utilize that identity to proceed a little bit deeper and deeper and conduct some additional activities. So again, phishing training is vital for that, and the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, as well as users understanding that when they see things in their email, maybe they're seeing emails that they didn't send in their sent items, or getting replies from emails that were, several years ago that somebody's, just happens to be replying to now. That's kind of a key trigger for a lot of those things to try and get them to respond to a lot of those. So making sure end users know who they're supposed to talk to and that they are actually reporting things if they are seeing strange things going on in their email or actions that they're not taking being performed. Next is information leakage. We talked about this a little bit in our last one, but do your staff know what they're able to share and what they're able not to share? Are they posting things publicly? When they're compiling their data reports, are they taking the appropriate steps to hide student information from people who aren't necessarily cleared to see it? Do you have the approvals for when we want to post information about students, either be it with our FERPA sign-off forms or things like that, or just that there's a lack that people are taking the appropriate care when they bring work home with them? Are they appropriately locking laptops and things like that in their car? We've seen a number of laptops and things stolen out of vehicles, and maybe laptops may or may not have been encrypted, so you're losing some data that way. Thumb drives, stuff like that. Just making sure we have a more secure hold and the staff are using the appropriate methods that the district wants them to use when sharing information, such as in our region, a lot of districts have Secure Share, or you have Google Drive or Microsoft environments, internal network. So making sure that those things are configured appropriately for their sharing, how you expect that they're sharing, and that the staff are using those tools and they know which tools you want them to use for which types of information. Next, malware and ransomware. Again, we've seen malware impact school districts all across the country. At the start of the year, LA City school districts, or I'm sorry, school districts in the LA area. There have been a few other kind of smaller ones in New York State, as well as across the country, that did impact certain educational agencies. So still out there. Fortunately, nothing major in our region just yet. But making sure we're taking these other steps that we've talked about, and the ones that are outlined here on the screen are important for you. Just a note, you see we have anti-malware software, parentheses, CrowdStrike afterwards. This fall, we did adopt CrowdStrike as a new standard for anti-malware, antivirus software, if you will, or as we're going to kind of be referring to it in the future, EDR, endpoint detection and response software. So CrowdStrike is going to be the new regional standard that we're putting out in replacement of Cylance. That's going to start occurring towards the end of this year and into next year. So this will be when we start the next year product, we'll be migrated over to CrowdStrike for our anti-malware and EDR solution. Beyond that, least privileged access, making sure that our teachers don't have administrative access to their machines unless it's absolutely necessary. Same with office staff. Administrative access should be reserved for administrators, and by administrators we mean those administering your software, not necessarily district administration, but rather technology administrators, because having that level of access kind of scaled back and only needed where appropriate really prevents the spread of a lot of malware and ransomware due to the limitations on rights and what people are able to install. And then finally, compliance. This is something we're going to talk a little bit more on through the rest of this conversation. But again, so this is going to focus on audits conducted by the New York State Comptroller's Office, as well as making sure we're taking the appropriate activities to comply with Ed Law 2D, as well as many of the other laws that kind of govern our activities, such as FERPA, PPRA is out there, student biometrics, things like that. So as we get into the rest of this, we're going to talk about some of the audits that are out there right now, what they're looking at, and kind of what the next stages are and what we need to focus on moving forward. So with that, I'll just pause for 1 second. If anyone has any questions on the threat landscape, the things that we've talked about, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And when we see those, we can address those, or if you want, we can address questions at the end as well. So the New York State Comptroller audits, this is kind of one of two components I want to focus on in this auditing section. One is audits from the comptroller, and the other one is going to be, we're using the term audit, but it's kind of more of an assessment verification kind of thing, activities from the state education department, but brought on by New York State Comptroller audits. So as you can see, we kind of track audits that go on over time. Brittany Rizzo on my team takes the time every year to go through audits that the comptroller has completed, finalized, and posted on their website. She goes through those and kind of pulls out the main points, how many audits they're going on, what areas are they focusing on. So we're able to present that information for you just so we can see kind of trends over time, what they're looking at, what they're doing, where do we need to focus the majority of our efforts. So you can kind of see 2019, this is statewide audits as well, not just in our region, but this is focused on technology and security, not financial audits or any other audits that the comptroller might come in for. Dropped down a lot during COVID years, spiked back up to pretty much double what they were prior to COVID. The 2019 and previously, those were all right around those same, 13, 15, 17-ish levels. Now we're up to 29, and now this year it's been up to 33. So the comptroller is taking a more active effort to look at not only how districts are spending their money, but also how they are working with their technology and representing themselves and having their security postures kind of where we expect them to be. So here we have kind of a breakdown of where the comptroller is primarily focusing their efforts. Number one is looking at user accounts. Do you know which accounts you have in your system? Do you know which accounts are active and should they still be active? Do you have a procedure for inactivating users as they leave your district? And as well, or if they change roles within the district, do their rights need to be adjusted, making sure that you have the right people doing the right tasks with the right level of rights within your system, be it network systems, be it your administrative systems, your school tools, your financial systems, and all those, especially ones with more complex right structures like your network and your school tool systems. So you should have a process to annually go through those accounts at minimum and evaluate and review. Do we have the right set? Do we have the right people doing the right things? In those. Following that, they took a lot of look at policies and procedures. So that's board adopted policies as well as IT procedures. So maybe not capital P policy, board approved policy, but rather things, how we expect things to flow and function within our district, protocols for doing things. When do we access equipment? When do we have the necessary data security plans in place? Do we have acceptable use policies? And then not only do we have these policies, but do they reflect kind of the operational standard for what we want as our acceptable use policy, cover everything we need to cover, and is it up to date with the kind of functions that we want people to do? So for example, a lot of acceptable use policies may say there's no personal work is to be done on school computers, networks, what have you, altogether. If the comptroller sees that and they look at your filtering logs and they see Amazon shopping, you're going to get dinged for that. So does your policy language reflect a modern use of technology? And if it does say what you want it to say, are you appropriately enforcing what you expect it to say, either via filtering or other methods for how you want to address a lot of those things? Disaster recovery and incident response, we talked about that a lot in our last session, making sure you have a plan in place, that it's up to date and that it's adequate for how you want to proceed with your activities, and you're covering the appropriate things. Beyond that, looking at account permissions, and there's also some focus on asset management. So are you disposing of your hardware appropriately? Are you accessing it in your inventory? Is information, computers that have sensitive information on them, are you taking the appropriate steps to ensure that either they're erased or the drives are destroyed, or what have you? When they're recycled, are you getting certificates for those things? That's part of policy, that's part of your asset management procedure. And then finally going through a number of other things, some additional policies, looking at your 2D contracts. They didn't take too much of a look at this last time. They took a little bit deeper look at contracts and SLAs during last year, during their last go around. And then finally, a few other miscellaneous things, things like server room access, and just kind of a few other one-off scenarios. So keeping these things in mind, what we want to make sure is that we are focusing on these areas because this is what the comptroller is calling about and looking at most frequently. Now, the other thing the comptroller has taken a look at is not only school districts, but have taken a look this past year at the New York State Education Department. We briefly touched upon this when the audit started, kind of last spring, but they have taken a look at State Education Department and not only their internal operations, but are they taking the appropriate measures to kind of monitor. And we haven't seen the finalized report yet. They're still in the closing out stages of that. So a lot of these are my words. They're not what's written down in the comptroller's report just yet. So just keep that in mind if my language doesn't exactly match up with theirs, but monitor and enforce some activities that SED or that the regulations say school districts need to be doing. Is SED doing what they need to do to take a look at what school districts are doing and ensuring that they are complying with the law? So what we've heard from the State Education Department is they're going to begin taking a look at what school districts are doing. And the beginning stages of that look like they've discussed with us is going to be taking a look at district websites to see, do they have the appropriate information that they need to have posted for Ed Law 2D, as well as some of the other laws that are out there. So we're going to be taking a look at some of that, what's needed and what are they going to be taking a look at. As far as time frame, we don't have the exact time frame nailed down yet. They're still going through their planning processes, but we would expect it'll be sometime later in the spring or in the summer that they're going to start going through and taking a look at these things. So we do have a little bit of time to start making sure that we have our ducks in a row with a lot of these areas if we don't already. So in that resources drive, that we have a document that we've shared previously, but it is our Part 121 website check, which Part 121 is, just as a refresher, is the State Education Department's regulations that go along with Ed Law 2D. So they pretty much mirror what's written down in Ed Law 2D and kind of put a little bit more detail around it. So a lot of the main points that are covered on here, and you'll see a little bit more detail in the document than obviously these bullet points here, but making sure you have your parents' bill of rights posted. You have a procedure for report the community members and eligible students to report incidents of unauthorized disclosure of data to the school district, as well as to the State Education Department if they'd like to go that route. Having your supplemental information posted for your software systems that you're using, having a data privacy and security policy. Should be kind of ingrained with the rest of your policies that you have available, but being able to have that available to your parents to review is useful. Having contact information for your either for your data protection officer or whom you want parents to get in contact with should they have questions and concerns about data privacy and security, or for kind of some of that data breach or unauthorized disclosure reporting we talked about earlier, as well as while it's not part of Ed Law 2D necessarily, or the 120 regulations, having your FERPA information posted as well, because FERPA, you are required to notify parents of that information. And I think a lot of the focus from what the comptrollers talked about with the state education department, as well as what Louise DeCandy, our new chief privacy officer, is focused on, is making this information, making security information as available and accessible to parents and understandable for them and convenient for them as possible. So moving FERPA in with the rest of our security information and privacy information kind of just makes sense from an end user navigability point of view, because they may not know the differences between the different laws, and it's our job to be transparent with them and educate them on what their rights and privileges are. So to give you an idea of what this can look like and the kinds of things that should be posted, at Madison Oneida BOCES, which is obviously the BOCES associated with our Regional Information Center, of which I am the data protection officer for, we've adjusted our website, made some updates to it to ensure that we have the appropriate information there, and to also provide a model for a lot of school districts to make sure that they have everything. So anything you see on, posted on our website, you're welcome to take as, as much or as little language as you'd like. Obviously, make sure that any language that's utilized matches what your school district is doing, your district policies. If you haven't done something, obviously you don't want to say that you are. You may not want to phrase things the same way. You may have different policies than we have. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at information. But you can use this as a guide as you're posting and writing things, just to see what's there. So number one is you want people to be able to find where your data privacy and security information is. So if your website has a search function, you want to make sure that it appears in that search function if somebody's searching for it, and you want to make it quick and easy to find from your main page. Either, so we have it here, we have it on our quick links section. It shouldn't be any deeper than that. So either right off the, either right on your front page or right off one of the main menus on your front page, pretty much, kind of that one-click navigation, which is kind of best practice for a lot of websites. So clicking into the data security and privacy resources, we've written here kind of an introduction as to how important data privacy and security is for us here at Madison Oneida BOCES, letting them know our data protection officer is there to help them, making our data privacy and security policy available to them. We have it available. It's in our policy handbook already on our website, but we've added another link to make it easy for people to get there from a single landing spot. So this is where they're going to go. They're not going to necessarily go to look through our policy manuals to find things. And also making a note that we are utilizing the NIST cybersecurity framework for our data privacy and security resources per what's required under Ed Law 2D. And as you see, we have kind of little accordion sections below that are expandable, just so their users aren't presented with a large wall of text that they're kind of in their face when they get there, and a little bit easier to find what they're looking for, with titles that are kind of layman's terms for what they're going to be seeing in each of the section. So here you see my smiling face up there as our data protection officer, contact information for me, what the role of the data protection officer is, and just kind of a quick little blurb there. Because not all parents obviously are familiar with Ed Law 2D and nuances there within, so we want to make them give them a general idea of who we are and what we're doing and what these roles are actually there for. Next accordion section is parents' rights. So this is our Parents' Bill of Rights are posted in this section, as well as identifying what parents' rights are both under Ed Law 2D and under FERPA. So the Parents' Bill of Rights does that for Ed Law 2D, but we also posted our FERPA links in here, let them know what we've designated as directory information in this section, even though it is in our FERPA policy. It's on page 3 and kind of a wall of text in our policy, made it nice and easy for them to read and understand. Here, there's also our links to some of our FERPA opt-out forms, links to correction and inspection of educational records. So again, it gives them that nice, easy place to go to when they're looking for information without having to comb through your website and through a bunch of policies that, maybe 3 or 4 policies, relate to FERPA, putting them all here so they know what they're looking for, as well as provided links to the actual laws themselves. So at the very top, you'll see we have FERPA with that links out to the federal government's FERPA website, and the Ed Law 2D section and Part 121 regulations both link to the appropriate areas of the state education department's website. So people can inform themselves depending on what level of information they need for what they're looking for. Next section, we have unauthorized disclosure reporting, which is again another one of those buckets that we need to make sure that we have. So it tells people if you do believe there's an unauthorized disclosure, here's how you report it to us, and then here's what's going to happen when we get that information, and also a link to be able to send that in for parents to talk to the chief privacy officer and submit a complaint directly that way, be it about a third-party vendor, be it about a product the school is using, some misuse from the school itself. So the regulations require a reporting process for the school district as well as one for the state education department. So having a link to the state education department form, as well as having a form built for your school district that people can go to, is kind of where that link goes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a form. We find forms are probably the easiest to use, but it could be a phone reporting or written reporting, but you need to post that information as to how you take those. Our form actually does have an address at the top if they want to submit something in writing directly to me, and then outlines what's going to happen with that information. All reports are going to be investigated, as well as some information at the top about timeframes for when we have to report something should we receive a complaint or we notice an incident or an unauthorized disclosure from our lens. So something that we see happen with our vendors. As a school district, we're required to report that to the chief privacy officer, as well as notify any affected individuals by those things, be it student PII or any of that personally protected staff data as well, which primarily is the APPR information. Next section, software and supplemental inventory, software inventory and supplemental information. Easy for me to say. We have our, we know we're supposed to be logging, tracking and logging and inventorying all these software that we utilize in our district, and posting the supplemental information for that software. We don't need to be posting entire contracts and things like that. The supplemental information is kind of what's required for us to be posted and what's most useful for parents to be seeing. So those elements are, they're listed, bulleted, listed for you. Don't have to read them all, but why are we using this product? How long does the contract last for? What that our vendor has the appropriate security and protections in place, data accuracy and challenges. That's kind of information that should be coming to the school district, not going directly to vendors. And if you need any of these addendums to get this information, they're in the data protection, security and protection planning guide that's in the meeting resources as well as that's been distributed a few other times. And then there's just a little note as well that we're still working on some of our contracts. So the supplemental information, those may not be there. We've listed the product so they can see that it's in use. So if a parent knows and they're actually go looking for something that is in use, and they don't see it there, they're going to be a little confused. So we do, we post all the products. And then as much when we get supplemental information for that product, we post it up there. Otherwise, we're still pursuing agreements with those, and they are vital for our student success. So we're still utilizing those products while in conjunction approaching the vendors for getting the appropriate agreements and actively pursuing those. And then finally, this last section isn't required under Ed Law 2D, but it is important for transparency because these are other laws that govern our operation and that parents typically would like to know about. We have the Protection of People's Rights Amendment, PPRA, that is rights that students have and parents have as far as getting parental approval for students taking surveys about the school district. Some of your SEL stuff, I think, falls under that. Your district should have a PPRA policy and method for opting out of that, which we've linked in here. And each of those links as well take again to the federal or state law itself, so they can get the full details of laws and some of the information around that if they so choose. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, which manages our gives us guidance around students under 13 years of age and utilizing vendor websites. And then finally, New York State Tech Law, or the Office of Information Technology Services, which establishes that organization. And then also it's a whole bunch of detail underneath that. You'll see New York State Shield, you'll hear that mentioned, which is New York State's information reporting law, but it covers more things like social security number, driver's license ID, stuff like that. Whereas we're more focused on Ed Law 2D, but New York State Tech Law being schools being local government agencies still do fall under New York State Tech Law. And there's also a section in there about biometric utilization as well, which we've been talking about, are still gathering information on. So that is what we've done with our website. And you'll see these two guides here go a little bit deeper into all the requirements under Ed Law 2D. So we had our website checklist earlier on. These two guides here. One is the New York State 2D Protection and Planning Guide, which is available in the Google Drive, that goes through the specifics of each of those 9 buckets that we talked about previously, and talks about the implementation of those. And then a project implementation tool to, again, go through those buckets and say, okay, where are we? Do we have this done? Do we have this done? Is the information on our website that needs to be? And the stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be on the website, are we going through and pursuing that? So here's those 9 buckets again that we talked about. Understanding how we're protecting personally identifiable information, having our Parents' Bill of Rights posted, having a data privacy and security policy, implementing the NIST cybersecurity framework, and showing that we're being able to show that we're do so should we be audited in that regard, having our third-party contracts complete, training our employees annually on both the law and appropriate cybersecurity best practices. We have our unauthorized disclosure complaint reporting, which gives people the ability to, again, make us aware of those unauthorized disclosures, incident reporting and notification process. So when we become aware of an incident, how do we notify people involved, as well as the education department? And then finally, noting our data protection officer. So all these are these sections that are in that guide, and you can get some more detail there on those. And obviously, it's all things that we've talked about over the years. So with that, take just one quick pause to grab a sip of water. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in. All right. And then finally, we wanted to go through some tools and resources that we have available in support of a lot of the things that we had, that I had just talked about. Number one, your starting point can be the MORIC Data Privacy and Security webpage. Right off MORIC.org, we have a link right there, that big blue button that takes us to a lot of the resources that we have available, publicly available resources. The meeting resources that we have posted here, most of those are not posted there. They're posted in the Google Drive link, again, that's associated with this meeting, as well as in chat, because they are not stuff that we make publicly available. It's rather information we want to keep a little bit tighter lid on. There's nothing in there that's completely confidential. But at the same time, it's not stuff we like to advertise to anybody who can get their hands on it. We have our supplemental information posted right under that link. So if you're following that to the data privacy and security page, one of those links is our supplemental information for third-party vendors. We have the links to both contracts negotiated here locally at MORIC/Madison United BOCES, as well as contracts that go through some of our other partners in our contract consortium, in which contracts are negotiated on behalf of the state. A lot of those are our instructional based resources that are utilized with students. We are working on some methods to make this even more user friendly and make those available to you, particularly with some of the information that's available through the contract consortium as opposed to locally negotiated ones. So you're going to see some updates on this page going on through the next several months as well, to make some of that information a little bit easier to grab and utilize. And we have our RIC1 inventory tools available here as well. Just a kind of an easy tool that allows districts to again, track and log all the software that they're utilizing in their district, and link out to supplemental information. It gives them a nice, neat way to track and post it. That information can be done, with a spreadsheet as well. This is kind of what a quick look of what the inventory tool might look like posted on your website. Just kind of lists who the contractor is, where the contract is, what the contract source is, and then a link out to the actual agreement itself, along with the time frame of the contract. That's all housed within the tool, and being able to put that in and collect a lot of that background information. Then this is kind of a report that comes out of that can be posted right to your website. Or you can, if you have a better way of tracking that via, a spreadsheet, Google Docs, something like that, you're more than free to do that. The tool is not required to use. It's just something that's available to you to help with that tracking process. And there's always the RIC1 Data Privacy and Security website. You'll find many of the same resources that we've talked about here posted on our website, but they're also posted there, which is shared with school districts all across the state. Just so there's that one section. You'll see some additional resources in there as well, as far that are more related to. There are some professional development resources in there. We have some kind of different ones available here, but you're welcome to use those if you'd like to. As well as some what are called digital debriefs and digital blasts, which are more kind of summary things of what's going on worldwide in the realm of data security, or anything that might be of interest. Blasts are kind of quick little blasts, and debriefs are a little bit longer form. Digests are a little bit longer form. Debriefs are more kind of video conversation. Next tool we have available for you is KnowBe4, which available again to all districts in the region. All districts, pay into this for licensing every year, so you do have it. It's available to you. Every district has it and is licensed for it for all their staff members. And we really encourage you to utilize this tool for phishing training, as well as any other kind of data security training and Ed Law 2D training. It's available to all of our districts. Again, so there's phishing training. There's what they call a mod store that has all kinds of different things in there, such as there's posters, there's little games, there's exercises, stuff like that in there, focused on different data security tasks. There are you can do your training for staff, so not just phishing and phishing recognition, but also overall data security best practice or targeted trainings. They can be a full half-an-hour training, or they have little 2 to 3 minute videos that can be shared out with staff as part of a training program as well. So you're not just doing one and done training, but rather you're kind of reinforcing with small little bits of information throughout the year. And it also does have the ability to do some custom content as well. And one of the main pieces of custom content that's available is something that we created here at our center, which is the data privacy and security and awareness training. It covers everything that's needed for Ed Law 2D compliance. So there's general data security best practices. There is requirements that the staff, mostly teachers, need to know about Ed Law 2D. So not going real in depth to the law, but knowing what their responsibilities are for that. It only takes 15 to 20 minutes to actually complete that course. And that's available to everyone free of cost within the KnowBe4 system. And this is just an example of one of the sections that's got little matching exercises, flagging some phishing stuff, dragging cards into do's and don'ts, and all those sorts of things. It's broken out into 4 key sections to help make sure that we're meeting everything that we need to do. And it's a quick and easy way. KnowBe4 tracks who has taken the course and how long it's taken them to do so. So, and you can just click a button and print out your sheet, and you've got your verification that you've trained anyone. So anyone who wants to get a little bit more active in KnowBe4 or has questions about how to set it up, you can contact Chris Schaefer or Derek Lalonde on our team to help you get set up with that. Next, we have our NIST CSF evaluation tool. So as we mentioned, right now the State Education Department has mentioned that they're going to be looking at school district websites for compliancy purposes. Another thing that's listed in the law is utilization of the NIST cybersecurity framework to run your security program. So while they haven't said at this point that they're going to be looking at this, it wouldn't be too surprising to see them start to look for some verification that some of this work is being done. So what this tool we have available, again, free of cost for all districts in our region, is this NIST cybersecurity tracking tool. It's populated with all the NIST subcategories, has quick rating scales for them, has the RIC1 target profiles, resources, and rubrics that we've created are loaded into the tool. It gives you the ability to do some notes and action plans for those things, assign tasks to people. So if anybody would like to get started with that, they can reach out to Chad Hatch and he can get you in there and get you started. Just to give you an idea quickly of what that tool looks like, it lists the subcategory or the activity that needs to be performed, links to some references for that particular subcategory, and then gives you what the target score is, and then gives you the opportunity to rate yourself on where you stand. So fairly simple and easy, and then there's some reporting and things like that built into it as well. The rubrics are built into that, so you can just kind of click on one, it gives you your score out on that front page that you just saw, and you can make some notes for evidence of that in action planning and some things of that nature. So simple, easy to use tool, or again, not required. It's something, if you have another way of tracking it, you can do it on a spreadsheet, you can do it in a Google Doc, something like that. You can have a third party come in, do an assessment for you to see where you stand in some of those areas. And that is all managed by the resources that I mentioned, our target profiles and implementation guides, which are all available in that Google Drive and the resource link available to you. And again, to get started with that tool, you can reach out to Chad Hatch on our data security team. And with that, I will open up to see if there are any questions. Now we've got some save the dates as well. Our next meeting is going to be an in-person meeting combined with our technology leaders. So I know some of you on here are technology leaders. If you have any other relevant staff, you can always bring them to that meeting as well. It'll be a meeting where we can collaborate and get some workshopping done to get a lot of that to move forward on any of these security tasks that we need to get done. And I also wanted to draw your attention to the RIC1 statewide user group. So this is available to all districts across the state who are part of the RIC1 service. Every district in the MORIC region is part of the service. So if you would like to attend a bit, more intense, a little bit longer conference, you can see it is a day-and-a-half conference in Albany. There'll be, they're still finalizing some of these sessions and speakers and things like that, but and we'll see the chief privacy officer, Louise DeCandia, there, as well as some state and federal or mostly state agencies, probably maybe some federal agencies as far as Homeland Security. They're talking about things, a number of vendors, stuff like that. If you are interested in one of those longer form user groups, there will be more information to follow coming out and making that available to you. And I'll just end on this finalized slide here. This is a QR code that again links to the resources that I mentioned. As we get more documents, that Google Drive is going to be your primary source for any more secure confidential resources, not necessarily confidential, but stuff that we're not necessarily posting publicly. So that's where those will be posted, as well as meeting resources and things like that moving forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Eric for any finalization.
Great. All right. Thanks, Ryan. And thank you all for joining us this morning for our data protection user group. We are recording this webinar today, and we will send out a link to this video recording following the meeting today for anyone who would like to go back and review. And as Ryan mentioned, our next user group is coming up in March, so you can register for that session and all of our other professional learning options by visiting moric.org/PD. And if you have any questions about the content that we covered today, all of our contact information is also available online. So again, thanks for being with us this morning. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you all very soon.